I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You're watching the Cryptid Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel. You guys, I've got a really great show for you tonight. I've got a very legitimate guy, I'm going to say, in this community. He is the host of Bigfoot Society. He is found on YouTube. I watch him do TikTok Live. He's on Spotify. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the one, the only, Jeremiah Byron. Jeremiah, welcome to the show.
Daniel, thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to be here. I've been waiting to come on the show ever since we set it up, and man, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So, I actually started listening to you before I started listening to Mysteries Unknown. I found you through Spotify, and just how your cadence is, in your interviews and stuff. I'm like, this guy, you know what, sucked me right in real quick. I was like, yeah, we're gonna listen to some of these stories.
Oh, thanks, man.
So yeah. I really appreciate what you do for the community, man. And it's you're a rock star, so. That's what I believe.
I try to be. So what I'm trying, I try to be consistent, and consistency is number one. And the main reason I do this is so that there is a place, and I'm sure your reason is probably very similar, I'm guessing, but a place where people can feel safe to share what they experienced. And I mean, I've talked to you on my show, and your story is incredible. And we're at a point where people feel like they are okay to come forward. Now they just need the places like your show and my show where they can do that and feel okay to do so.
Yeah, because the first time I ever told my account of my sighting, it was like 33 years, man, before, and I reached out to Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles, and I sent him an email, and like literally later that day, I got a return email from him saying, man, I need to have you on the show. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And yeah, it was like 33 years before I said anything. And then after watching more stuff and not really before all of that, before I went on Wes Germer's show, I realized that I'd actually had more encounters, not sightings, but encounters. And I'm like, I've heard that before. I've experienced that before. I've seen those before. And so that really got me deeper into this community. So let me ask you, what made you decide to get into this whole thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it goes back to when I was a young kid, about like 8 to 10 years old. I would watch stuff before bed with my dad, and so we would watch Unsolved Mysteries and You're in Search of with Nimoy reruns and all that good stuff. And then kind of got away from it for my high school and early 20s, and then I started working at Apple and found that it's cool to be weird. It's fine. You can embrace the weirdness that you once had, and like it's cool, right? So we figured out that, hey, this is in West Des Moines, Iowa, and we figured, there's like this cryptid that's near us in the town of Van Meter. So we got involved with the Van Meter Visitor Festival, and then my buddy Andrew got involved with filming the interviews for Small Town Monster documentary, which was Terror in the Skies, which is a really good one. I like that one. And so Andrew's like, come along with me. We're going to go in this old warehouse. I'm going to film these interviews. It's going to be great. You can watch it. It's a fun time. When we got there, he was like, okay, dude, actually what I need you to do is I need you to be the guy that's off camera and getting these guys to tell stuff. And here's kind of like an outline. And he told me this with like a minute to say yes or no. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, let's try it out. And like halfway through it, I was like, man, I really like this. Like, I really, really like this. So then after that, I was like, man, you know what? I should just start the podcast, see what happens. And at first, Bigfoot Society was started, and I was talking to people all about different cryptid topics. It was all over the board. And this is like February 2019. And then I would say about a year and a half to 2 years ago, I started really getting into Bigfoot due to the help of a friend, researcher named Tate Hieronymus. And I just realized, like, and when you talk to these individuals that have had Bigfoot encounters, they have been very, very much so affected. And I was like, you know what? This is how I can do what I love, which is the podcast, but also help these people out. Because they were saying afterwards, after the interview was done, they were like, okay, thank you so much for letting me talk. And like, now I feel like I can go to sleep, and it's been like 20 years I haven't been able to sleep. So I was like, okay, I feel really fulfilled, and like I'm making a difference. And that's kind of how it came about.
Man, that's it. You're right. It's cool to be weird, because I remember seeing, In Search of with Leonard Nimoy, and then I remember, seeing the Patterson Gimlin film, and then watching The Legend of Boggy Creek. It's funny. I was born in 72, 73. That movie came out. I probably saw it. I don't know. I was probably maybe 6 or 7, maybe 8 when I saw it. So I don't know how old you are. I mean, you're probably a little younger than I am. But I was that nerdy kid that went to the library time in school, and I immediately went looking for the weird stuff, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, that type of stuff. I wasn't your typical kid, and I would check them out and then bring them back and check them out again. So I literally had a library book out probably the whole year, because I would keep checking it out. So that's what kind of got my interest in it. And then when I had my sighting, I knew exactly what it was. So let me ask you this. Have you personally had an encounter where you're like, holy smokes, here I am, a podcaster, a part-time investigator, and like, holy smokes, this just happened?
Yeah, no, that is definitely a road we can go down to, because the answer is it's gonna be a little bit of a long answer, Daniel. But yeah, I can go down there. Because as you know, it's like, I guess a lot of people listening might get this. It's like when you are interviewing people and you're a podcaster, but then you almost have to decide, am I going to cross that line into affecting the subject as well, or I'm just going to be an outsider? And I've already mentioned my friend Tate Hieronymus, who has a really good documentary series on YouTube. I'll just plug that, Sasquatch Search for Sabe, if I can. If you want to see me out in the field in Iowa, I'm in some of the episodes. But
Sure.
he's very persistent, and he's like, we got to get you out in the field so you can get to know what actually happens out here, so you can talk to people. So about 2022, we went out to an area in Iowa where he had figured out, okay, there's stuff that probably happens out here. Let's check it out. We go out there. It's in August in Iowa, super hot. First day, 110 heat index. I'm like, oh man, what is going on? Like, nothing's going on, right? Yeah. Second day, it dropped about 30 degrees, and that's where stuff started to kick off. Right outside, about 30 feet into the woods, there was a tree that got pushed over, and I was like, whoa, what was that? Like, is there fireworks out here? And he's like, dude, there's no fireworks out here. We had to drive like a ways to get out here. Then there's like later in the day, there wood knocks. We started hearing wood knocks, and he was able to go back and forth with them. I had gotten a Tascam recorder, and I put that on a picnic table about 30 feet out. And that next morning, about 3 a.m., I had captured wood knocks, set of 3, but then I had also captured the sound of a tent being unzipped, right? And the thing is that I hadn't gotten out of my tent at all. So we think it may have been a mimic noise of a tent, because I was the only one in a tent. That was really weird. That freaked me out, right? But the stuff that happened later freaked me out even more. So then the next year, which is 2023, I go back to the same area with Tate, and then a few other people, Ontario, Ron. We had some weird stuff happen in the same area. We had wood knocks again. We had weird mumbling from the woods. That was really weird. But then I realized that comes up in a lot of encounters, right?
Yeah.
That was the first time I heard a vocalization. So I was in my tent by myself. It was 3 a.m. and I heard the sound of whoop coming from the noise, or sorry, a whoop coming from the woods in my tent. It weirded me out, dude. When you first hear that, you're like, oh my goodness. Another member of the party heard was similar to like an Ohio howl, right?
Yeah.
So then, is all right if I keep going?
Yeah, keep going, man.
Okay, here we go. So now we're up to this year, right? I asked my son, I'm like, okay, bud, what do you want to do for an adventure in Iowa this year? And he's like, I want to go on a Bigfoot expedition. All right, buddy, let's go. I know where to take you. Okay, so he's about eight years old at that time. So we go to this area, we drive in. It's a weekend. I think it's around late May or June. We get in there and we just hear dogs barking all through this forest, dogs everywhere. And we're like, what is going on? What happened was there was this dog hunt, and these hunting dogs were everywhere. Now, we think that may have affected things, as you'll see what happens next. So they're running through the woods trying to get deer. It was not a good reaction what happened later on that weekend. We did hear a few wood knocks. The first weird thing was I was in the bathhouse on the corner of the campsite, and I'm in there doing my thing, and I'm like, man, if I hear my kids say that's weird, I'm gonna have to kick down this door because we're gonna have missing 411 out here, right? And no joke, dude, like 10 seconds later, I hear my kid outside and he's like, that's weird. And I'm like, oh, it's go time. So I didn't kick down the door, but I get out there and he's like pointing over in the woods. I'm like, buddy, what'd you see? And he's like, just saw something peeking around that tree over there, Dad. And I was like, whoa, okay, weird. And so we talked about it a little bit, and he did say, I'm not really sure if I saw a thing. And then I circled around with him a few days later at home, and I was like, why did you say that? And he's like, it's because you don't see weird things like that in the daytime. And I was like, huh. So he may have talked himself out of it logically.
Right.
Okay. So there's that, right? And then this area is really weird. When dusk sets in, the vibe just gets crazy weird. So I'm standing there. One of my buddies says, you should try something to see if you could communicate. Looking back on it, I really shouldn't have done this. Probably not a good call. Because hold on, Daniel. Yeah, this is what I did. And I would never do this now. No offense to my buddy. I know he might be watching this, but probably wouldn't do it again, bud. So what he was like, he's like, you need to take your hand and beat your chest and say something in Cherokee. And I was like, that sounds great. I would never do that again. I would never, that's a challenging thing. I had no idea, right? This is earlier this year. So then what happened is my heart started racing uncontrollably to the fact where I was like, are we going to have an issue here? So I had to sit down, cool down. And meanwhile, my kid, who's normally not a crazy kid, is running around the campsite going nuts. And I'm like, I got to calm him down because it's getting dark and I don't want him to trip and fall. So I get up again. I'm trying to get him to calm down. my heart starts freaking out again. I don't have like weird heart stuff, right? So I sit down, like, all right, we're just going to bed. So we go over to bed in the tent, and I'm like not sleeping. I'm just laying there, eyes open, and I am like, I just want something weird is going on. No joke, like 1 a.m., all of a sudden, the tent poles of the tent snap and the whole tent comes in on us. And I'm like, oh, this is it. Like I was so mad. We got up, and mine, that's not my normal nature, but like the next morning, we got up at like 6:30 a.m. and I was like, we're out of here. We are 100% out of here. I'm done with all of this. And like we drove away. And Daniel, the weird thing is, when we got about 10 miles away from this area, that whole attitude cleared out. And so that's the weird first thing of 2024, dude, right? Okay.
Here, let me ask you a question real quick.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So, number one, why would you beat your chest? And what did you say in Cherokee? Because I've heard Cherokee natives speak Cherokee, and when I heard some of the samurai chatter on different videos of it, it sounds similar to them speaking Cherokee. So one,
Yeah.
why'd you beat your chest? And two, what did you say in Cherokee?
So I really trying to think how to say this exactly. This is an individual that I very much respect his ideas, and it also was the idea of another individual that I respect. And I was not really. I was more thinking, oh, if they're saying it's a good idea, I should just do it. Now, after I've really gone through a lot, as you'll find out early or later in this episode, and thinking for myself when it comes to Bigfoot related things, there's no way I would ever do that again. That is a challenging thing. And not only were they probably mad about the dogs, now they have this human guy who's like, come get it. And like, let's do a fight or something.
You're like, I'm the boss.
I was saying I'm the boss. And so, I recommend no one to do. Now, I can't remember the exact phrase I said. It started out with like OEO. I don't know, man. I'd have to look it up. But it
what
was
does it translate to? Oh no, you said they goofed you, man. They told you.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He's not a guy that would goof me though. Like I'm dead serious. Yeah, but I get you. I get it.
You got rooked.
No.
Okay, so when that happens at 1 a.m, you hear snap. Now I've put many tents together.
Yeah.
I don't care. Those tent poles are just not going to snap on their own.
No.
So when you got up the next morning, what did they look like? Did it look like where did they snap?
It was the main pole that went across, and it was like in the middle where most of the tension would be. So, I mean, it wasn't an old tent though. That's the weird thing, right?
Right.
But like, yeah, and no bad weather, and no rain, and no wind. Just all of a sudden, it was like, shh,
snap.
Yeah, dude, snap, right? And
so you get up,
it
you see it, you tell your son, we're gone. Your mood is just negative. You're like, F this nonsense. Pack your stuff, get in the car, and you drive off. And you said like about 10 miles away. It's like all that just disappeared. Just
out, dude. Mm-hmm.
And what happened next? You said, now we're on to another time, I assume.
Yeah. So this is just earlier this year. It was my first really big kind of like traveling for the podcast to go and like interview people face to face. There's an episode that if you've heard my podcast, you may have heard me talk to Ronnie, Roseman, and Dwayne about the area way out in the Willamette National Forest near a town called Oakridge. and where they pretty much had this crazy encounter where they're out in the woods tenting, and Ronnie, for some reason, decided to do the part of, so in the 90s, he was hanging out with these cryptozoologist dudes and Bigfoot guys, and he had something happen by his tent that sounded like the angry part of the Sierra sounds. So Ronnie, when he's tenting with this other guy named Dwayne, he decides to do the loud version of that again. Yeah, right. And what happened 15 minutes later was these 4 Bigfoot ran straight up the side of this mountain. One sounded like a chimpanzee, a coyote, a raven, and I'm escaping what the other one is, but pretty much they were surrounded and bluff charged for hours that night, and they thought they were going to die. Okay, so that's the background, right? So I get invited to this festival out there in the same town that Ronnie's daughter is putting on called Sasquatch Summer Fest. It's a great festival. Now, my idea is I'm going to have a booth. I'm going to talk to people, get their stories. It's going to be awesome. They're like, we want to take you out into the woods. Okay, so there's a film crew there at the same time. It's, oh my goodness. This is going to be bad. Jason Kenzie. There we go. If you're aware of who he is, from up in Canada. Great guy. Great film crew. They were out there a day before or so. They got up to the same area the day before. They had some wild things happen out there. It's a meadow, and they saw a adolescent juvenile Sasquatch jump out of a pine tree on the edge of the meadow and run into the woods. Okay. Pretty much because of the way that my plane came into Eugene, that actually happened on the same day that I flew out there, which is a Wednesday. So I missed having that visual by about 5 hours.
So this happened in Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon. Sorry. Yeah, Oregon.
Yeah.
Oakridge, Oregon is in the middle of the Willamette National Forest. So
yep.
They're like, Ronnie and Dwayne are like, we want to take you out to this area. We actually want to take you all over where we've had experiences out in the wood. I'm like, that sounds great. So we go out there. We're taking the whole day to check things out. It's awesome. It's a dream. It's beautiful out there. There's the moss on the trees and just like the huge stumps where you're like, oh man, what was that? No, it's just a huge stump. So we're up there. This meadow is about 25, 30 miles out in the woods on a Forest Service road. Like, it's way out there, right? So a few weird things happened out there. The day before, the same film crew had left a banana, an apple, and an orange up in a pine tree. And when we got there, we're like, oh, let's check it out, right? So we go over there. The apple and the orange are on the ground, and the banana is on the ground, but it's peeled and eaten. And I was like, oh my, like, I didn't know how to think about that for a long I was like, what? Dude, like that pushed me from like 100, like 99%, because I was like pretty much there, but like way past. It's like, yeah, there's something with hands out here that had to peel and eat. And it was weird, man.
So wait,
really
like a regular banana, like you and I would peel a banana.
Yeah, it was weird.
How high up in the tree was it, do you think?
I want to say it was, I think it was like 6 to 7 feet up. The guy who put it up there is a really tall guy.
Okay, yeah. So my thing is, whenever I hear someone leave, oh, I left apples for them. And okay, so here's my thing. My dad left fruits and vegetables during our whole sighting encounter. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He greased the pole. He had everything up there, and they took everything. Okay. You could see where they grabbed a hold of the pole. You could see where they ran a finger down. When I hear someone say, oh, on this log, I left an apple, I left an orange or whatever, I'm thinking possum, raccoon, deer, possible bear that would take those. Okay. I'm not saying that Bigfoot wouldn't, but that leaves so much open. You know what I'm saying? You know where I'm coming from with that?
Mm-hmm.
But then you tell me they put it about 6, 7 feet up into a pine tree, and they put a banana, and the banana is on the ground, and it had been peeled like you and I.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Let me tell you something in addition. So the year before, Ronnie had a gifting area up there too, where he would leave food.
Mhm.
And he got a, you know how you can get like the slices of pie or cobbler from grocery
Yes.
stores in the
Yep.
plastic snap thing? So he had put that in the plastic snap thing and then in a plastic bag and then put it up in a tree about 8 feet. When he came back a few days later, he went to check it out, got the bag, and something had taken the bag down, taken the plastic thing out, eaten the cobbler pie thing, and nothing, like, it was all scooped out and nice and clean, snapped it back together, put it in the bag, and then hung it back up. And I'm like, dude,
Up.
what? Okay, yeah. So then that same day, so Ronnie's a really cool guy, but the way he connects with the creatures out, the Bigfoot out there, is he plays guitar. And he's really
Okay.
good. Like, I like the way he plays. He plays kind of like 1960s type songs. Really cool stuff.
Right.
So we're hanging out, just sitting around in nylon chairs and talking about stuff. And he's like, I'm going to play a song. And so he starts playing a song. And then about a minute into it, we hear from the woods this humongous roar. And dude, I had a visceral reaction where it felt like all the blood rushed out of my head. And because of that, my ears turned off and they went all the way down to my feet. And I looked to my left and Dwayne is sitting next to me, which this is a guy that got so messed up from this previous encounter. He was like, I'll never go out there. And now he's out there and it's happening again. And he's like, dude, it's happening again. I'm like, and so we're freaking out. Like, it's not right there, but it's in the woods. And then Ronnie's like, I want to play another song. So he plays another song. And then there's another roar that goes into a scream from the same area. And we're just like, man, it's time to go. Like, it just, I have never had such a weird reaction like that physically to anything.
Right.
But dude, it was a very interesting first foray into, okay, now you're not just hearing something in the woods. Now it's something where it's angry. Like, it sounds angry at you. Or maybe it was trying to sing with a guitar. We don't know. But that was the one of the weird things that happened in Oregon. A group of us went up to the meadow so the festival was 3 days. Ended Sunday morning. A group of us went up there late Sunday afternoon. I forgot to mention. Sorry. I was like, there's a few things I forgot to mention. I should go look to see where that Bigfoot jumped down and see if I can find anything. Dude, I found the most wild tracks. And these are like, have you ever seen the splayed toe tracks?
I have.
Yeah. And we were able to bring up an individual there who doesn't really want to be named that he was there, but
Right.
he's a guy where if you heard him say that, yeah, those are legit, you'd be like, those are legit. So
Is it a person I've heard of before?
It's a person everyone's heard of.
Oh, okay. You can text me
Before,
yeah. You can text me.
So there's
I won't
that,
say nothing.
but so we found yeah, I'll text you. Yeah, track way that went into the woods. So at the same time, I had either gotten bit by really bad horseflies or something had happened reaction wise up there, and pretty much throughout the weekend, my legs started swelling really bad and started hurting really bad. So that's something you have to keep in the back of your mind for what's coming up next. So we go up there Sunday. Late afternoon, we're hanging out. A group of us are just sitting in chairs. I forgot to mention that when she's up in the area, has a she brings on, for some reason, they really like Dwayne's daughter. And I was like, I'll probably never get to see these interactions happen. But no joke, when she was up there, something started making, it wasn't bird noise, but it sounded like half of a bird call that was fake. And she's like, watch this. I can get up and I can communicate with this thing. She gets up. Dude, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen, Daniel. It's freaking weird. Sorry. Oh. So it's weird, right? So she gets up, she hears the bird call from the edge of the meadow, and she makes the same noise back. And within half a second, it's back, and then back and forth and back and forth. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And then it starts like slowly going to the edge of the meadow, like it was almost trying to get her to go to another area. And this is like at 4 p.m, dude. It was then. There was also a time when I was sitting in the chair, and all of a sudden, I found myself staring into the woods. And it wasn't that I was conscious of it, but I was like, I can't move. And for about 5 minutes, I couldn't move anything. Like, it was I've never been paralyzed before, but I was not moving, dude. And so I don't know what that was about, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. Also, there was an individual that was recording with his iPhone that we found out later. He had recorded. There's so much weirdness in this, Daniel. I had David Ellis from the Olympic Project analyze this audio because it sounds like a whoop. Only one of us in the party heard it live. But yeah, it's a whoop that he recorded. But then the other weird thing is that the audio before it, I always thought was me saying something and mumbling.
Yeah.
And he's like, the weirder thing is not the whoop, but what's before it. And I was like, dude, that's just me talking. And he's like, that's not possible because the audio in that part is so low, humans can't make it. He's like, what we've noticed is that there's this weird audio that's starting to come out, and it's like almost a precursor to language. So it kind of sounds like me, but it's not me. And it's something that is mimicking my voice. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to sound like a crazy person if I ever share this. Like, this is wild.
Well, guess what? You just shared it. You lunatic.
I just shared it on Daniel's show. So there's that.
That is, see, you're saying it's a lot of weird, bro. This is not weird, man. It is fascinating.
I know. No, it's not weird. Yeah.
Man, that is.
Yeah.
I've got to go to that festival with you, and I got to go to that spot with you because here I've never been off the beaten path whenever I go hiking since my last encounter with my younger brother. I just won't go deep in the woods, but man, you're kind of making me want to go out and experience this stuff for real.
The other weird thing that happened, there's a gentleman. There's a lot of really cool people at that festival. Last day, this gentleman named Bill comes up to me and he's like, "Are you ready to see one?" I'm like, I guess so. So that's Sunday. Now, Monday, my idea was to go out and do remote interviews I had set up. So I do my first one at a cabin way out. This field guide, he shares all these things that have happened through the PNW on his trips, right? Really cool.
Yeah.
At the end, he looks down at my legs and he's like, "You need to see a doctor." And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, "You look like your legs are going into they're going septic." And I was like, "Oh." And he's like, "Get to a doctor right now." And so I had to cancel all the interviews and just drive into Springfield, which is about 40 minutes away.
Yeah.
And I talked to these doctors at urgent care, And they're like, we have no idea what's up with your legs. They were bringing in doctors. They had no idea. They're like, we're putting you on the strongest antibiotics we got, and which worked immediately, which was great. They think it may have been something like probably cellulitis, right? But they weren't sure. They had no idea. And the funny thing is, if you read the paper about what can cause it, one of the things is like getting direct rays of energy, like, or radiation directed at you can cause it. Or it could just be like it could just be, I walked through a meadow and there was a plant that I wasn't used to and it made my legs freak out. That could be it too, right?
So radiation poisoning or some botanical plant rubbed up against you. Oh, like you went through a patch of stinging nettles that just didn't agree with you. Come on.
Well, that's what the doctors have no idea. I'm just that's my idea because I had to come up with some idea. Okay, so I get back to Oakridge. It's my last night there, and I'm like, you know what? Forget this. Like, everything fell apart. I almost like kicked it because of some weird thing out in the woods. And so I'm like, I'm just going to get a burger and like go out and have an adventure. Okay. So I am driving along and I drive down by this reservoir where I'd gotten a lot of reports, like a lot of things. It's south of the town. And so Daniel, when I was driving and I drove by a pine tree that had vines covering it.
Yeah.
And as I drove by it, what I saw was the silhouette of a 7 to 8 foot Bigfoot in the vines for a second, and then it vanished. Like, that's nuts. And so my logical side won't let me accept that there was something actually there because I did have a fever at the time and I was on like weird like antibiotics trying to get rid of whatever in my body, right? But I did see that happen. I don't know, man.
Bro, it's fantastic. Man,
it's weird, right? It's weird.
Oh, dude, no, that's not weird, man. That's just
No, it's
I'm telling
awesome.
you, man.
It is awesome.
It's awesome, and I would love to go through everything you went through with the exception of whatever happened to your legs. I don't want to deal with that type of stuff. But
no, I'm wearing pants every time I go out there from here on out. Like, I can't risk that happen again.
Oh, I have to. I hate ticks. So, and it's funny, you mentioned these places, and I know where Eugene is. The other two places I've heard of, because I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in Tacoma, Washington. I lived in Puyallup. I lived in Graham. I used to go to Mount Rainier all the time. I went up in the Olympic Peninsula all the time. That's where I had two of my scariest encounters were up in the Olympic Peninsula, up north of Aberdeen. So, so after you came home from that trip, how did you process everything? How long did it take you to come down with the idea of like, okay, I know what I heard, I know what I encountered, and I know what I saw?
I don't know if I have completely processed through it. I did get a really I wanted to go back into the woods. There was a strong desire to go back out and like I actually which so I'll share this, which is I don't recommend doing this, but I did it. I had a strong desire to go camping again. I just wanted to do it. So I was like, you know what? I ended up doing a 2-night camping trip solo to the area in Iowa that I've had things happen before. It was very interesting, but I just had a strong desire to like, I want to go back out and connect with whatever happened out there again. The campsite that we usually camp out when we go out there was taken up by a family, so I had to camp in another corner of the camping area. Some weird stuff happened. So I'm in my camping area. There's a few kids over there. All of a sudden, they start making like monkey noises and taking sticks and just whacking the side of oak trees in the area. And I'm like thinking this is a really bad idea because they have no idea what they're doing. All of a sudden, as this is happening, behind my campsite is right next to the wood line.
Mhm.
Behind in the woods, tree gets pushed over, and I'm like, guys, stop.
Oh, no kidding. And they're
Yeah,
just kids having
they're just getting
just
it
a
riled up.
blast.
Yep.
No
So
way.
the first night I'm out there, this family is still having their reunion on the other side. I do remember, and I think this is a fox, but it was about 3 a.m. Something did run through the campsite, and it was like making that weird, like screaming fox noise.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that was a fox, right? Then they leave the next day. Then all alone in the forest. There's no one else out there except for random hunters because it was hunting season. This is in September of this year. I did find something was really weird on the picnic table. When I woke up that second day, there was a plastic fork with a squirrel tail through the tines. That's weird, right?
What?
That's a little weird, Daniel. Yeah.
That is weird.
That's weird, right? Yeah. So there's that. And then, so after they leave, like the mood in that forest just went weird as all get out. So that night, so I make it to sleep. I wake up. It's about 2 to 3 a.m. No joke. Something is walking around in the campsite around the tent. It is 2 legs. Logical side says maybe it's a hunter, but 2 or 3 a.m. and like a hunter's not going to walk around someone's tent in their campsite because they're going to like something's going to happen to that hunter usually, right?
Right.
I now know what it means when a witness says I was in that tent freaked out and
Yeah.
something was right outside. Now, it wasn't like someone pushed its hand, like they didn't push the hand on the tent, but I was like this is it. This is it, man. If I make it through this, I need to be much better prepared for next time. Like it was horrifying, Daniel.
I'm down to go with you.
The last time or the last thing that happened in that September camp out, it was Sunday morning. I was getting ready to go. I was sitting in my tent. It was 7 a.m. And all of a sudden, out in the woods, same direction where the tree was pushed over, I hear this noise. I'm like, man, that sounds just like the gibbons in the zoo. And I was like, that sounds like the gibbons in the zoo.
Oh no.
But it was at 7 a.m. Like it's light out. And I was like, and the great thing about this is no recorder at the time, Daniel.
Yeah.
Because I learned a valuable lesson is don't give your gear out because then you don't have your gear. Like you can help people out, but just have multiple gear items.
Yeah.
So that's what's happened so far.
Bro, this interview went way different than I thought it was going to go, and I'm grateful for it. So, one, is there an open invitation to go camping with you?
We'll talk. We'll talk off air. There's a few things that we would need to talk about. It's we'll talk about. It's a special area, and I'd have to check a few things. Yeah,
dude, I would not.
Yeah,
I'd probably tell Josh. That's it. That's all I would tell Josh. I would tell Josh to fly back out here so all 3 of us can do this. And what I like about Iowa is that Iowa recognizes and honors my permit to carry. So
Yeah, we do.
I have my my 45 long Colt, my cowboy single
Right.
action revolver.
Absolutely.
So I'll probably bring that. But so now let's go ahead and kind of turn away
Yeah.
from your experience. And you've been doing this, like you said, since 2019, and
Mhm.
you have interviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of people. Is that fair to
It's a lot.
say?
I actually just figured this. I figured out that in this last year, I've done about uh, 250, at least 250 hours of
Man,
interviews. Yeah.
that's amazing. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Give me, you don't have to do the whole story, but are there any one or multiple guests that you've had on that have just left you dumbfounded by just the amount of activity they've had? And I don't mean dumbfounded like, yeah, I don't believe you, but you're just like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing interview. This is an amazing encounter. Have you had any that just like jump out at you? So people watching this can go to your channel on YouTube or Spotify and like, oh, I'm going to look out for this. I want to hear that interview.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, honestly, Daniel, your episode where I had you on is a listener favorite, and
Oh,
it is an incredible episode. I'm sure your listeners are familiar with your story, but if they're not, they need to make sure they listen to that on your show, and it's also on Bigfoot Society as well. I would say, let's see. Man, the craziest ones are the ones where it's face to face at a festival, and I do share the Oregon Festival encounters uh, in an episode I did, a field episode I did with and Tobe Johnson was there talking with me, and he's the guy from the Owl Moon Lab. But so pretty much, if I can share, this guy comes up at the festival, and pretty much it was for 2.5 days straight. I was just talking to people about their encounters from Oregon. It was awesome. This guy comes over. He is making small talk and very much does not want to be there. One of his buddies is like, "Okay, you just gotta talk to him." And so
right.
this guy, like blue collar guy, sunglasses, does not want, like, you know how in the Avengers movies where it's like they put on the Avengers like hiding like hoodie and glasses and baseball cap. Yeah, I was
Yep.
like that. So I'm like, yeah, what's going on, sir? And he's like, I gotta share something with you. So pretty much his story is that he was out in a meadow hunting with a high powered rifle. It's okay to talk about like weapons on your show, right?
Yeah. Because we're
Okay.
not
So
displaying them or anything like that. So,
But yeah, high powered rifle. He's out in the on a meadow on top of this mountain. He's looking through his scope, and he sees a family of Sasquatch on the other side of the meadow. And they actually look over. They see looking at looking at them with the gun, and so they skedaddle. All of a sudden, he hears them running up either sides of the meadow in the tree line towards him. He freaks out, jumps in his truck, leaves the gun in his backpack there, speeds back to Oakridge. This is just outside Oakridge area. When he gets back to town, he finds his buddies. He's like, guys, my gun was a lot of money. We are not leaving it. We need to go back up there, load it up so I can get this. When they get back out, and this story is so wild. Like if I had got it in an email, I would just have deleted it. But to see him, it's face to face. They get back up there. They find the gun barrel. Imagine like a big hand, like scrunched the barrel or the scope. Sorry, I'm not a gun guy, but the scope and either sides of the scope just blew out, right? The barrel of the rifle is bent back, and there's what he said looks like blood all over the gun. Like something may have maybe tried to do something with it and like misfired it, or like the barrel is bent. I don't know, right? So pretty much,
no.
and his backpack is shredded. And so they're not around, thankfully. So he gets the backpack back. He gets the gun, keeps it in a plastic bag. Story goes is that somehow he gets this connection with someone in the Smithsonian. They tell, or he tells them the story, and they're like, yeah, well, we could totally test that for you. And do you think they ever got it in the mail? No,
Nope.
they lost that in the mail, dude.
Did he
So-
take pictures of that rifle?
No. And here's the crazier part. Because I was like, I gotta get this guy's contact so I can like talk to him more. And I was like, sir, I'm sorry I didn't get your name. And he's like, that's because I didn't give it to you. And he turned around and just disappeared into the crowd. And I was like, holy mackerel, what just happened here?
Dude, I got
Right.
goosebumps. I got
It's-
goosebumps. Just
it's
that is
wild.
amazing, dude. Holy smokes.
The crazy thing is that like everyone out there has stories like that. And these are just loggers and
Yep.
construction workers. And like they don't care. They don't have a book to sell. They're just
Yeah.
like, I just gotta share this with someone. It's a different world out there, man. You know that because you grew
Oh.
up there.
It really is. And it's funny thing is Fred from
Mhm.
Alaska, subarctic Sasquatch. I think I'm saying it right.
Yeah,
But
Subarctic Alaska Sasquatch, something like that.
yeah. I relayed him a story of my grandfather. My grandfather was a logger up in Alaska,
Mm.
and he was up on the pad where they have the yarder and the big machine that would go down, and it bring like these cables down for the guys who are putting up chokers on the trees, and it pulls the yarder pulls them up onto the pad. And my
Yeah.
grandfather was a limber, so he'd go through and he'd just limb everything down, just cut them all down with chainsaw, so there was no limbs on them. And then they'd pick them up and put them on the truck, and then they'd go. Well, the yarder operator blew the whistle. It was like, hey guys, it's time to come up for some lunch. And no sooner did that whistle on that thing stop, that this scream just came bellowing out of the woods down below, where there was like five guys down there putting chokers on. My dad relaying to me what his dad told him. He goes, your grandfather said he's never seen men run up a hill where there were fallen trees, there were stumps. It's like they just levitated up, and they got on the thing. And my granddad says, you guys, let's go, get in the truck. We're done for the day. And they never went back and logged that area. They had to send a whole new crew in there to log.
Oof.
But it's a weird world out there, man. It really is. And anybody to say, oh, they don't exist. And even some of my episodes that I have people, there's, oh, this ain't real. I wish that's a really good imagination. That's because people, they haven't experienced, or their mind's
Yeah.
not open to accept what they've seen or what they heard. And I don't fault them for that. I really don't. But
Yeah.
that is one of the most. Oh man, I wish I could.
So people, if they think that's great, so I have on the YouTube channel for Bigfoot Society, I have an Oakridge, Oregon playlist, which is up to like past 30 episodes, because I talk to everyone in that town for the podcast, and there's some wild accounts in those episodes.
Oh man, I got to start surfing your stuff just to see if anybody leaves anything in the comments, so I can see if I can get them on my show. That's fantastic.
No, you do. I'll give you, if you want to, I'll give you the okay to do it. Although I read every comment too. And
well,
that's the thing. So what's going to happen, and this will happen with your show, it may even happen already, is that, I mean, half of my episodes come from the comments in the YouTube episodes. It's just because people leave some wild stuff in the comments, man. If you follow up with it, if you take the time, it's wild.
Yep, I know in 2 of my episodes, I have someone who asked for my email address because they want to email me something. So, just let me put this out there right now. So everybody out there, thanks for watching the show. But I just want to, Jeremiah also said it earlier in the very beginning, is that we are setting up communities where people can come and tell their story. You guys, this is a safe space. And if you email Jeremiah or myself, it stays with us. I may share something with my brother Josh who's the host of Mysteries Unknown. But in this little community, a lot of people like Jeremiah, myself, Josh, we keep it to ourselves. And I'm gonna tell you right now, Josh sent me a video that a man sent to him. It is one of the most amazing videos I've ever seen in my life, and it is absolutely 100% what it is. He does not. He's like a 70 or 80-year-old man. He does not want to come on the show. He does not want his name given out. He does not want the video shared, but he just wanted to show Josh. He's like, I need to get this off my chest because this is what it is. And we also have another video that a lady sent to us, and she goes, I'm afraid if I put this out there that it's going to bring nothing but bad luck to my family. And I don't know if she's on vacation or she's like at a weekend home cabin or something, but you see these trees and all of a sudden out of nowhere, this thing just like comes out of the trees, bends over, picks up something. I don't know if it's picking up like a tree nut or something, goes down, picks it up again, and then it hears something, and in 2 steps, it's off frame.
Oh.
And it was big. And I looked, me and Josh, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, man, because it is, I'm telling you, I wish that we could put that stuff out there. And you know as well as I do, just like that story that guy said, oh, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. It's because I didn't give it to you. And he turned around and disappeared.
And
Walked.
I will say, because there's a few listeners that are like, oh, you're sharing a story without him saying it's okay. What I did get to ask him is, can I share this anonymously? And he's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Before that last part. So
yeah, people say, when we get these videos, they say, I don't care if you talk about it. Please don't share our name. Please don't share the location. You can describe what you see. And, we mentioned on a live, and so what's the story? We want to hear it. Sorry, that is the story. We can't show it because there's stuff in that video that's going to let people know exactly where that location is. And we want people to keep trusting us. We only go as far with a story that someone will allow us to go. I'm not going to go and, if you confide me in something, you say you can mention stuff, but please don't get into great detail. I'll never get into great detail with it, but yeah, it's
absolutely. Yep.
So
I have hours of interviews that I never got the okay. And I'm not just going to release them, but I do have I mean, it's people really trust us a lot, and we need to not take that trust for granted.
Yeah, because honestly, I think some of the videos, like I was going to say, is that as well as I do, there's people out there that have crystal clear pictures, crystal clear audio, crystal clear video of these creatures. And it's legit. And the reason they do not release any of it is because of all the garbage that people try to pass off as something, and then those people get ridiculed and they're afraid that that's going to happen to them. And I completely understand where they're coming from. So, it is what it is. But
it's just it's a wild, wild world. It's wilder than most people imagine.
It is, man. It really is. Hey, I'm going to let you go ahead and plug your show, man. Go ahead, everybody. Get a pen, get a paper. And Jeremiah, let's plug your show.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, Daniel, for having me on. I've been so excited to come on the show. I'm glad it's actually finally happening tonight. Thank you for having me on. But guys, if you want to check out the Bigfoot Society podcast, you can go to bigfootsocietypodcast.com. All the links are there, all the social media things, where to listen to it, the YouTube channel. If you listen to a podcast and you're like, man, I got nothing to listen to this day, I'm crazy. I release something every day. And that's because I do that because I have so many people reaching out to me that if I don't, it feels like I have to be able to get people's accounts out and to give them a place to share. So Bigfoot Society podcast.com's got all the links. If you want to, everything from merch to YouTube. And yeah, thank you so much, Daniel, for having me on the show.
Dude, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on. Let me do a little bit of house cleaning here. You guys, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for spending an hour plus with us tonight. Jeremiah's been, someone I've been wanting to have on the show since I started it. If you guys have seen, heard, experienced, encountered anything at any time, and you do not know where to turn, please feel free to email me at the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com. That's the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. And then we'll see if we can get you on the show, and we'll tell the world your story. This is a safe space. And when I get a chance to do lives, I'm definitely going to have my buddy Josh on for sure, but I'm also going to have Jeremiah come on as a guest host. So cool. You got anything else?
Man, I just say, if you're going to go out there, guys, make sure people know where you are and be prepared for anything to happen, but just have a good time.
That's 100% true. So you guys, like my buddy Josh says, stay prayed up. And as I always like to say, remember, a legend always begins with a sighting. Jeremiah, thank you so much for coming on the show, buddy.
Thanks, man.
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?